know that you're not alone.
Why am I different?
That you had to change
The
yourself.
most anxious person I've ever
The
met.
reason I'm just losing all the interest.
The only person who's changed is me.
So it's all fugazi. So
People don't live like that. You just wake up, gym.
felt like
Most people are doing nothing.
okay, so the reason why we are doing this today is because I want people to understand those people who actually have problems. I won't call it mental problems, but maybe those people who are suffering down moods or depressions or having anxieties. You people know that you're not alone. I'm going through this. I have hosting with me today. So basically, I'm very interested in understanding how people live in big city lives, how they combat, battle the stress, what they do to actually improve their lives, how do they stay mentally fit. And yeah, I guess we're here not today, not to teach people or tell you what you should do to fix certain problems, but just to share thoughts and ideas. I'm not a certified specialist. Are you certified
No.
specialist? No. So neither of us are. I'm doing my master's, majoring in psychology, so I have a great interest in psychology. I personally have certain problems in my life, let's say down moods or mood swings. So that's why I would like to talk to a friend today who can actually share how he keeps it up, and he seems to be doing it well. Okay, so what first attracted you into the field of psychology, mental fitness, and
I think like all of us, myself, like people like ourselves, I always felt like I didn't belong in this world, and that's a really weird feeling to have.
I feel that sometimes.
Because you feel like everybody is like normal, like this world is acceptable to them, but everything that's going on is unacceptable in my mind. And I feel like, oh my god, like why am I different? And then over time, like I felt this as a child, but then over time it got compounded until one moment I went to a medical professional.
How old were you?
I was about 20. I was about 24.
24. We are in our early 30s.
Yeah.
Both of us.
So I was like, and then she told me that I had these issues and I need to see a psychologist. And one thing she told me that I'll never forget is she told me, Hosni, you're the most anxious person I've ever met in my life. And she was a doctor in her 60s.
Was it in Hong Kong?
I know it was in Australia, but she was a doctor from her background where she was a similar national ethnicity as myself. You could say that.
I think it's important because what I've realized, it's only people from your background and like your culture who can really understand you better. That's the problem that I currently have in like living in Asia. So
yeah, I think at some stage of the treatment process, you should have someone involved from your cultural background. If not the psychologist, at least the treating doctor to exclude like who can actually understand all the various cultural factors. Because you see, until that point, all the emotional difficulties I went through, like that were part of my cultural baggage, I thought it was normal. I really thought it was like normal. I thought that this is how people live. I mean, looking back now, that these same problems, like the people are going through this, not to speak bad about it, but my aunts, my uncles, my mom's family, my dad, they're all living the same way. The only person who's changed is me, right? Believe it or not. But back then I thought it was normal. And the truth of the matter is, the doctor told me it wasn't normal. It isn't normal. This is like
interesting.
But she didn't say it in so many words. She was trying to be nice about it. She was a family friend to one of my aunts for a long time, so she knew my family as well, extended family as well. So she told me it wasn't normal, and I didn't want to hear it because when you lived a certain way, you don't want to hear people tell you.
It's like self-denial.
Exactly.
Correct.
No, you don't want to hear to tell you that. Listen, this relationship you have with your mom is not right. But what I didn't want to hear is I didn't want her to tell me it's you who's the problem. And that's what she was essentially telling me. Like, you're the one who needs help. Like, but if my mom is causing the problem, shouldn't she go?
No, but you can't change your mom. I mean, because what I find, it resonates to me because I can totally see what I've adopted, what I currently have in my life as a psychological patterns. It's a lot to do with my mother, because when I look at my mother right now, I'm very self-conscious right now, and when I look at her, I see me, let's say 3 years ago, because I have gone through a dramatic transformation, I think emotionally, personally, even culturally. So I relate to what you're saying, that you had to change yourself because you can't change environment. One of the most effective practice or something changing, like lifetime experience that you had in your life, how did you start fixing it? Where did you start?
Well, at that time, I visited a psychologist who helped me. He was a white guy, an Australian, and actually, believe it or not, he looked at me in this weird way. In one way, he almost admired me because he validated a lot of the thoughts that I had about life. It was a bit strange because he saw that everything wasn't wrong with my life, but then at the same time he pointed out there's this that's going on in your life, and this is where you've got this unhealthy burden anchor in your life. So it isn't that your whole life is messed up, it's just this one part. But sometimes I guess that's the problem, because when your whole life isn't messed up and there are so many things that are actually better than other people. For example, one day when I went to see him, I told him, I just picked up and dropped off my cousin's my nephew from daycare, and he's like wow, I wish we saw more of that in Australia, like uncles just taking care of their nephews. We don't see that
but
anymore.
that's your culture,
exactly.
Isn't it?
So I never thought of that as being like something psychologically great. So it's these kind of things that I realized that growing up, that you think that everything's normal, and it's good, but there's this one part where your culture doesn't have a understanding of, that you're suffering with, which in my case was related to a bit like my parents, having a very difficult marriage for a long time, and my mom not wanting people to know about it, and then my dad doing whatever he felt like, and just around that dysfunction, just managing all the various emotions of people. It was so hard as a child, and as the eldest child in my family, I have two brothers. Responsibilities and things like that. It was just so burdensome. But he helped me out by actually just illuminating me to realizing that, listen, at the end of the day, if you're attached to this and if you don't deal with it, you will never be able to be free of it. And that's what, it took. He planted the idea, but I didn't listen until 7 years later.
Oh wow. So it took you 7 years literally just to kind of realize and be present and handle it.
Well, it's a bit like the path of least resistance, so it's like when somebody tells you don't eat sugar, you'll lose weight. You might immediately, the first thing you might do is you might stop adding sugar to your tea, but you might still take sugar in your cakes and sugar in other
that's
things.
education. That's the point of education.
So it's like I was doing the least resistant thing. So I was doing as minimum as I can to take their advice. So not being too emotionally close to them, but being functionally close to them. And I was still not as independent as I'm now back then. So I couldn't just tell them to go away. So I was doing the best I can with what I did, which was good because that became a habit. I just didn't realize it would take so long to become free of that.
How about any, let's say, so this is a lot of mental processing work into that. How about, let's say, some physical activities like exercising? I think you're very good at that, because knowing what you've done to yourself.
I think we can go through this process, there's specific things that everyone can do. But one of the things I really realized is when you're you could say struggling or suffering. Suffering is a really good word.
Suffer,
so
yeah.
When you're
I can
suffering
relate
mentally,
to that.
The best thing you can do is to try and do the best you can on that day.
Okay, let's do a case scenario. For example, this is what usually happens to me on a quite regular basis. I'm not diagnosed with major depressive symptom, but I do suffer from mood swings, and sometimes it's called apathy, I think, when you don't want to do anything. So the first thing, Saturday morning, you open your eyes, it's 9 a.m., and you want to get out of bed, but you just physically can't for whatever reasons. It's not like willing and able. No, it's not just that. It's that you don't have the reason to do that. So what would you suggest and recommend to people like me? Because if you don't get out of bed by 11 a.m. on Saturday or Sunday, I would say pretty much you would stay in bed until the following day. So what should I do? And it's not because I'm lazy and I don't want to get out of bed or do something. It's just because I don't see the reason. I think of the world as a worthless place. I mean nothing. It's all meaningless. So what's the point?
It is not the fact that that thing, that thought you have is invalid. It's the fact that it's dominating your mind so much, right?
Agree.
Because I think sometimes everybody alive must think that, right? Even if the world is a meaningless place, there is something in this world that's meaningful to you, that you enjoy, that you want to go out and do, that you like to do, whether it's even like reading a book or sitting in a cafe or watching a movie.
And I used to, so don't get me wrong, I used to be a different person 12 years ago when I would always know what to do, and I would always be excited, even like going and having a walk in the park. But it's not the case anymore. And I tell you, I have a whole to-do list that I have, like, there are so many things. I enjoy singing, I enjoy bike riding, I enjoy hiking, I enjoy going to the gym, I enjoy many things like design and stuff like that. But I can't, for some reason, I'm just losing all the interest. So that's what I mean. So there are a number of things that I'm really excited about, but I just don't have that physical strength.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, again, like you said, we're no experts. It is challenging because you do know what ticks you off. But that's at least important to realize you do know that, okay, I do like to do something. But at the same time, certain people, like myself, for example, we wake up in the morning and similar to you, and you just feel exhausted from the world, and you need to rest.
I feel exhausted from the world.
You need to rest, right? And the important thing is,
I feel physically tired sometimes.
And you need to be present with that feeling, and don't attach meaning, too much obsessive meaning to that feeling. Like, for example, oh, why is it that I don't want to go out into the world? Like, because I'm tired. Because I'm tired, Give yourself the most literal explanation. Because one of the things that, people who tend to be suffering from, not, at various levels, whether it's real serious depression or just mild, like, sadness, a bit like how I was, right? Just feeling sad at times.
The melancholia, so called.
is that we tend to have like philosophical conversations in our head because we always tend to think that there must be some deeper meaning to stuff. And
correct.
And trying not to have those conversations is really important. I just say, listen, I'm tired, today I'm just tired. Why does it happen? It just happens because like we're not meant to be working 40, 50 hours a week.
And that's what we're doing. Say that living in a big city, it takes so much mental energy, and you like, no matter how strong you are, actually at the end of the day, that's how I feel when I come back home. During the day, you are going through like numerous stressful situations at work because it's not like you're living somewhere in the countryside. Here you have a lot of stressors. I don't know, traffic jams, bosses, and it's an expensive city. People shouting, or people being annoyed or angry or whatnot. So it all takes away from you.
And there's all various forms of some kind of radiation, whether it's light, bright lights or screens.
I never thought of that.
Sounds, just like one
irritants.
Because I used to live in the inner cities, close to where you live. And when I moved out here, where I live now, and then I used to go back there, I realized, oh my God, it's so noisy. It's so noisy at 8 p.m. I never realized how noisy it was living here, but that had become normal to me. But the thing is, that keeps my brain alert, whereas here it's quiet. So just all the various forms of radiation and stimulation we're getting can tire us as well. And so by not being aware or not going through the process of eliminating what's wrong and then just going through the most radical thing, that life is meaningless and my life is we've kind of like just taken a shortcut. And the truth of the matter is, you probably have to explore 100 things, tick it off. Okay, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be this?
I should follow your advice in that sense. Don't try to attribute certain things to certain events. You might just feel tired.
Exactly.
And you just might feel like, today I have to spend time for myself, and I shouldn't feel angry that I'm not out and about conquering the world. So, okay, good. So realizing and being present. I have another question. Two people, and I know there are quite a number of people who would actually, like my mom being a great example, she really thinks that there is no such kind of thing as depression or anxiety or racing thoughts. She just thinks that, especially for depression, because she's the most anxious person I've ever known, she just doesn't realize that. But in terms of depression, she sees me and she just tells me, oh, that's your willpower. So it's all fugazi. So depression doesn't exist. It's you fooling around.
I think there's a very deep story that I like to tell for this.
Please.
There's a mentor I have, right? Somebody I follow online, who's of African American background. He grew up in poverty in Georgia, in Atlanta, Atlanta in Georgia, and he talks about the fact that when he went to his coach's house, right, he saw that kids had their own bedroom, and then he saw that people had enough food at dinner, and he came back and he told his cousins, you know what, people don't live like us. People don't sleep on the floor. People don't struggle to get food. People don't live like us, And I think for myself, right, now when I live my life, right, in Hong Kong, although I was born here, but because I had spent such a long time living in Sri Lanka, through secondary school, and my family is from Sri Lanka as well, there's a certain way of life there, developing country's mentality, and people are generally ignorant of a better way of living, including scientific factors. So what I'd like to tell you is the fact is most people in developing countries, including your mom, and believe it or not, people in my family are quite educated, they're exposed to the West, they know what depression is, they know what all these factors is, yet they try their best to cover it up.
So they purposely kind of chuck it off.
Yeah, because the cultural factor is even more. And the reason for it, right, I personally believe is twofold. One is because if you accept that there's a problem, depression, etc., then you have to accept that there's something wrong. And subconsciously, you do know something is wrong, you just don't want to accept it. Number two is that potentially, right, the person you're talking to, for one reason or another, is not as is IQ and EQ, but IQ may not be as developed as yours. Now, I don't want to say it's not as high, I just want to say it's developed, because there are various arguments.
Yeah, we don't want to upset anyone.
Yeah, exactly, but it's just not developed, because you could ask yourself, listen, look at your life, right? You live in Hong Kong, you've lived in other countries, you've learned foreign languages, you're quite an amazing citizen of the world. Is the person you're talking to on the same level as you?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Absolutely
So
not.
what does that say about them? So what you should do is not turn around and put them down. Just have some compassion for them. Feel, okay, listen, I feel sorry for them, but you can't expect them to understand what you're struggling.
No, totally not. It's just because I don't want to feel the resistance when, let's say even from my mother who resists it, and I'm trying to explain to her and she just refuses to listen to it. So if it's just because she's my mother, that's why I feel so painful that she can't really understand me. But luckily I have people like you who knows exactly what I'm talking about.
What's sad about this situation, I think it's the emotional closeness between you and your mom, because like for example, my mom does in Sri Lanka, she does help out other people with their she studied psychology and she's helped out other people with their psychological issues.
Right.
But when it comes to us, she thinks there's no reason.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think it's the emotional closeness thing, because when you're emotionally attached to the problem, you can't solve the problem.
Actually, that's what they say about psychologists, because I'm studying psychology right now, right? So I'm going to be a certified person one day, psychologist, hopefully, when I graduate. They say you should not be practicing on your family members, and no good psychologist can actually treat your family members because there is this emotional tie, and it's hard to overcome, so you would always be biased. So that's why I hear what you're saying in terms of your and your mom's relationships. It's just...
Exactly. I mean, just think about it this way, right? I mean, you must know somebody for a very long time, like just anybody, right? You must be able to pick out somebody who you don't really like so much, but for some reason, other people like them so much,
Oh yeah, I think I know those people.
And the reason for this is because you have a certain set of emotions attached to that person. The moment you interact with that person, the emotional attachment comes back. Like, oh, this person was like this when they were a kid. This person, blah, blah, blah. But when other people get to meet this person, they have no emotional baggage.
Correct.
So they get to meet the person in the present moment. Whereas
Correct.
the emotional baggage prevents you from living in the present moment,
Correct.
And see, that's one of the beautiful things about what love can be. When you meet someone that you want to love, you actually have to always take control of the narrative. And like, I'm a bit manipulative in this way, but I say it's for the greater good. You always have to understand that you want to limit like unnecessary emotional baggage, like you want to make sure that all the baggage you carry is useful baggage. And the thing with family, like in today's world, you don't get a choice. You have to carry all the baggage. So the truth of the matter is your mom is just looking at you from the perspective of a child. She knows all the times that that you've just complained for no reason.
And she's, by the way, she's my best friend. Like my mom, me and my mom, we're really bonding. It's like it's bond beyond friendship or relationships between mother and daughter. We're more than that. I don't even know how to explain that.
I know that's probably true. I just think you have to recognize the boundaries between this. And the thing is, I mean, whatever, like at the end of the day, your exposure to the world, your languages, the people, is far greater than your mom's, and for one reason or another, she may not be able to
understand.
And the truth is, she may even have these conditions that she may just think life is like this. She may not know that people don't live like this.
Correct.
It's like if we like certain parts of the world, like where we live in Hong Kong, we have electricity and lights everywhere, right? And when you walk the streets, there's lights everywhere. And I always tell this to my my wife at times. I'm always like, even though I was born here, but because I spent a long time of my childhood growing
up, you don't take it for granted.
Yeah, I don't take it for granted.
Amazing.
Because when I was growing up in Sri Lanka back then, not now, because now Sri Lanka is quite more developed. More developed after the war. The roads weren't lit. The roads weren't lit, so you'd walk at night and there'd be like, just like a little lamp there, and I would always look at it and I'd be like, I don't know, because I was always going from Sri Lanka to Hong Kong, and the moment you come to Hong Kong, you just see this extremely lit place, I'd be like, wow, Sri Lanka.
Burst of whatever, everything.
Exactly.
Abundance and
so I think maybe your mom doesn't really she doesn't see the light. She doesn't see the lack of light because the way she lives, it's just dark. I'm sorry to use this metaphor. So you have to be forgiving, and that's the kind of route that I'm trying to take for myself. Or I'm trying to detach from my mom, but in my case, I don't have such a beautiful closeness that you have. But I'm trying not to interact with her. I'm a bit in a difficult position because my mom comes from a Muslim background, and she's a very strict Muslim. And
from what I know, you're a free thinker.
Exactly. You could say I'm not a religious person. Believe it or not, I do believe in a divine power, and I love tingling my memory with stories of courage from religious scriptures. But not everything. But you got to remember that's probably not completely true. But it could be but the courage there, the stories of courage, they tend to be quite true, and we don't have courage today. That's for a fact, But she's extremely literal with religion, which is not a good way to live, right? Especially not in a secular liberal world. And she believes that her understanding of religion overrides anything else. So that's a very dangerous way to live. So you're a bit luckier because at least you may have the relationship with your mom with boundaries.
Correct.
I cannot not have those boundaries because I have some religious things that come in and will crush those boundaries.
Wow, that's really interesting and empowering. Well, I guess just to wrap it up, I think maybe also a few words that both of us are very active, and to me personally it was very helpful to keep myself from actually going down that rabbit hole deeper and deeper. Listening to music, great music, trying as much as possible, connecting with people. I think even sometimes in the morning when mom would text me a message or she would send me photos of my nephew and nieces, and I would look at it and I'd be like, geez, this is amazing. And I mean, life is actually meaningful. It's got a lot of colors in it. Or let's say if I happen to hear a nice song in the morning, just browsing through whatever music portals, and it would actually help me to get out of bed to go out and be active. Or definitely, I think one of the most important factors, like being in touch with people who are meaningful in your life. I'm not talking about general socializing, but let's say today, you help me actually to be here, to make an effort, because to me in the morning I felt like very shitty. Pardon the language.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, thank you.
Because when you wake up in the morning, it's like this feeling you can't shake off. And in order to shake off that feeling, I would go to the gym first thing in the morning. I just wake up, gym, and then that would help me to
absolutely.
Limit that.
I feel super guilty if, let's say, I don't go to the gym, which is kind of it's very addictive in that sense. So we should not be really reliant on the gym. Thinking is that when you're getting too reliant on certain things, let's say physical activity, running or jogging, or going to the gym, like doing physical. The problem was this. I've been in a situation when I had some problem with my knees, and so have you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently recovering from that.
So can you imagine how painful it is for someone who was always reliant on certain activities now not to have it in your life because of the physical disability or whatnot? I went through that pain because I would. For 2 months I was bedridden, and then it took me another 3 months to basically recover my knee. It was painful because I was so reliant on this.
I mean, for me, it wasn't that bad because I could still go to the gym and do weights. I still can. But I realized that at the end of the day, right, I had more power than I thought I did. And
by
the power of focus. It's true, by the power of focus. It doesn't mean that I don't have activities, but I can't be looking for everything as an escape, you know. And
that's what I'm bad at, because I do look at certain things as an escape. So sport is one of those things, and then I realize I can't rely much on that because God knows what happens tomorrow. And once again, if I become dysfunctional, if I can't run, jogging is a big thing for me, as you may know. I do it every day for at least like half an hour to an hour or 2 or 3 hours on the weekends. So I can't rely on this as a crutch.
But some kind of exercise, I mean, for anybody, but especially for people who are, I believe this, for people who are suffering, you know, who are suffering psychologically, even if it's not big, but they just feel sad or whatever, it's important to do some kind of exercise. And I have a theory, untested, that exercise is good because it helps you to breathe.
Yep.
And the thing is, we're taking out that carbon dioxide, taking in oxygen, and that just helps. And I feel like meditation is kind of the same thing. Exactly. We're helping ourselves to breathe and get in touch with ourselves. And even if you don't go out and exercise, even if you stay at home and do push-ups, press-ups, sit-ups, anything, that still does the same kind of thing for you. It's better than nothing. So I kind of realized that even when I was running or walking, I can still get the same refreshment. Believe it or not. It was just mentally, when you're running, you feel an energy, you don't feel it when you're walking, but you can get the same refreshment. The kind of same thing, like whether I'm lifting weights or doing something at home, body weights or whatever, it's the same thing. But anybody who feels they're suffering mentally, for whatever reason, you know, they should exercise.
Yeah. Just go. If you can't really do anything like lifting, running, just
do your best.
Just dress up and go for a walk. Just go for a walk. I think that would be enough, because go for an hour. Listen to, I don't know, an audiobook, or maybe not an audiobook, maybe better if you just listen to your favorite music, because I think sometimes audiobooks might be kind of mind suppressing, so it doesn't allow you to actually have your me time, be present. But I think like having a beautiful music in your headsets, going for a walk for an hour will definitely improve your condition and make it a habit. Make it a habit.
You will compound the benefits, because remember today, most people, what they're doing is they're doing nothing. Most people are doing nothing in terms of physical exercise. I agree.
That's shocking to me and to you, to both of us, I guess.
Because once I read like the guidelines by some American department, federal department, where they said the minimum amount of exercise someone should do for healthy life is like 3 walks of 45 minutes a day. And I'm like, in Hong Kong,
does it?
most people need to probably do some kind of exercise. As we get older, our muscles are degrading, our bodies are degrading, our health is degrading.
That time.
Our health, so we kind of need to, you know, as long as we continue to do it and build it up, we will get better over time. But we need to, as you said, build the habit over a long period of time, till death do we part, and we'll be fine. And again, one thing we haven't talked about, but it's really important, but we should never do, is having a good diet. Diet.
I think, you know what, I really suggest we continue with that and we do another session on the dieting.
We should.
Okay, so that's going to be another one. So stay healthy, stay mentally fit, stay focused, and
thank you for giving me the time. I'm
Thank you.
You're welcome.